at 11:14. Roll call, please.
Okay. At 11:14, Powell, Hoffman,
Here.
McGilvray,
Here.
Jackson,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Cavell,
Here.
Gingell.
Here.
Kuhn is absent with notice, and I see we have Woodward here.
Yes.
Yes, he's here somewhere. Oh, there you are. And Luke's.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item is approval of the minutes from July 13. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner McGilvery. Any comments, changes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Next up is approval of this agenda. I have a motion by Commissioner Gingell, support from Commissioner Nelson. Any comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. We move on to public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment? Yeah, thank you. Would you come to the head of the table and state your name and where you're from? And each person has 3 minutes to comment.
Thank you. Feel very important way up here.
Yes.
All right. Is this on? All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Shayna Levin. I am from Commerce Township. I'm here this morning as a concerned parent of 2 children who attend public school in Oakland County. I'll admit that I'm not sure that this meeting is the right place for me to be, but I'm determined to find the right place or the right people so that my message and the message of thousands of other parents can be heard. You see, I'm concerned that school districts in Oakland County are saying all the right things, that they will leave choices about masks and vaccines and testing and quarantining up to parents, and that they will only make these things required if the health department says so. And then in the last days or weeks before school is supposed to start, I'm afraid the health department will flip the script and will start to make requirements forcing school districts to change course. The governor had her emergency order powers stripped, and she quickly turned to MDHHS and therefore the local health departments to enforce her orders, citing public health as the justification for continued lockdowns and restrictions. Data and science have proven that these orders have been detrimental to public health, with hundreds of unnecessary deaths in nursing homes, increased substance abuse problems, and new mental health issues developing in children. I think what she did is unconscionable, but I cannot change the past. Instead, I'm hoping that my comments fall on the ears and hearts of people who can change the future. I want to know what your plans and intentions are going forward. I want to know what your functionality is. Does the health department plan to enforce public health orders, or is that up to Michigan Department of Health? If it's up to MDHHS, do you plan to represent your constituents and try to disagree with public health orders that will potentially harm citizens of Oakland County, including our children? Do you have the authority to enforce quarantines at schools, or is that up to the school districts? The problem here is that we have so many more questions than answers. I know many parents and citizens who have tried to contact people at the county level to get answers to these questions, and our letters and calls go ignored. If I can't get people to answer me in writing or on the phone, maybe you can do the right thing and answer me here in person. Oakland County is not overrun by COVID. In fact, we are doing quite well. There's not a lot of data about the Delta variant. It seems like right now there's a lot of hoopla about it, but no data. If you're going to enforce more rules and mandates, please show us the data. And don't just show us the data that supports your argument, show us the other side. Show us that masking children helps more than it hurts. Show us that quarantining kids hurts children more than it helps. Show us something to support the draconian measures that the governor, MDHHS, and therefore Oakland County imposed on residents last year were worth it. If you're not going to enforce more rules and mandates, on the other hand, on citizens or on schools, then please say so. The time for secrecy has ended. This year, this school year, needs to be rife with transparency from the top down. Parents need to be able to trust that their school district's plans won't change at the last minute, either because of orders from OCHD or because of fear. Students need to know that the people their mommies and daddies elected to public office, some of you here today, are going to support their learning and their mental health. Let's work together to make 2021-2022 a better year for our kids, and I welcome any of you to reach out to me so that we can start the conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And it is a great start to come to this committee and different departments in the school board. Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? All right, public comment is closed. We move on to communications. There are 7 items under communications to receive and file. First, from prosecuting attorney, victims' right grant application. Next, few from the sheriff's office, DNA capacity enhancement and backlog reduction program grant application. Another grant application from the sheriff's office, self-defense program, community policing development. Another grant application from the Sheriff's Department, the micro grant solicitation, community policing and public education series. Next one is from Animal Control and Pet Adoption grant application for the Bissell 2021 Empty the Shelter event. Another one from the Animal Shelter and Pet Adoption intake disposition report from June. And the last communication item to receive and file is the Haven Quarterly Report, October 1, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. I have a motion by Commissioner McGilvery, support from Commissioner Gingell. Are there any comments about the communications? All in favor to receive and file, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. We move on to our regular agenda item. The first item is appropriation of American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for Oakland Together Mental Health and Wellbeing School Partnership Program, the Youth Assistance Grant. They have a motion from Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Gingell. And we have Chris Ward and Mary Schusterbar here to talk about this item. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. You'll recall at the end of June, the commissioners considered and unanimously approved our first set of rescue plan programs targeted at acute urgent needs in the community. Within that set of programs that were approved was a $2 million mental health and well-being school partnership grant. And especially thanks to several members of this committee who made some great suggestions about providing programming for at-risk youth and working with youth assistance. We have worked through a proposal before you today to utilize $50,000 of that $2 million to put a at-risk youth program together under the administration of the Youth Assistance Coordinating Council, and Children's Village will act as the contract administrator. I'm going to let Mary speak on this because she knows much more than I do about it.
Okay, well, first of all, I brought a piece of paper. You know, that's kind of the fig leaf, right? If you come with a piece of paper, you know, you'll look good. So I'm going to, if you don't mind, pass those out. And this really, I know all of you around the table have interacted with Oakland County Youth Assistance or one of our 26 youth assistance offices at one time or another. But whenever I talk about the collaborative efforts that go on in the county with youth assistance, I like to give a diagram to just remind everyone that youth assistance is one of the ultimate collaborative programs of Oakland County. Through the commissioner's budget going to the circuit court, we have 26 offices throughout Oakland County. And you see at the top, we have school districts and municipalities who are our partners. And I just wanted to remind you that every year it's about $1.2 million of cash and in-kind support that come from our local sponsors. And then from that, the circuit court, not from that money, but in addition to that money, the circuit court hires employees and we put them in all 26 of our offices to do casework and then community prevention programming for at-risk kids. And we have a network of between 900 and 1,000 volunteers that participate in our programs. And I don't mean participate as in folding and stuffing or doing those menial tasks, but they form boards of directors of volunteers who support their community. And if you put all of our boards together every year, they, in addition to what the local sponsors do, they raise about $1 million in cash and in kind. So we've got the support of the circuit court, the municipalities, and the volunteers. So I lay that groundwork that you didn't even ask me to tell you, but I always feel that it's important because the money that would be coming to us through this grant is something that is in addition to that and will support all 26 of our offices. So previously, when we've received grant money similar to this, we've put it into the account of the Oakland County Youth Assistance Coordinating Council, which is the 501c3 nonprofit that's attached to my office. So that's in addition to the 26 across the county. And by doing that, we're able to get the money directly to families in every one of the school districts in Oakland County. We don't use these funds like for the general public coming to us asking for help, because there are agencies like OLSHA or other places that do that. But we like to use these funds specifically for the families that are on our caseloads. So we get referrals, as you know, from the school districts, the police, parents themselves, the prosecutor's office, the intake department of the court, or sometimes families themselves. So we do assessments with families and then try and figure out what are underlying causes that might be leading to the young people getting to us, and then from there helping the family come up with a plan to make things better in their own family. And sometimes that involves counseling or doing what we call skill building activities with kids, or a variety of things. And as you can imagine, we always see families who are in financial stress. And I will say that during COVID, as you all know, I know I'm like saying this to people who know it, but we have seen families who are hurting, they're overwhelmed. And so what we can do to help support them so that they can create a plan to get out of that financial strife, we appreciate any support. So this money would be used specifically for financial assistance for families. It would be used for mental health services for families. Sometimes families avoid counseling because they feel they can't pay for it, or they have insurance but they can't pay the co-pays because they're so far behind. So we really want to encourage that. And then also activities, we call them skill building activities or enrichment activities, which would give kids resilient skills and then something as an alternative to problematic behavior. So we would see this money falling into those three categories. So, all right, I feel like I'm in a debate team where you take the deep breath and say as much as you can before they make you stop. But I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Just one quick piece of business. So this proposal is up to $800 per
Thanks,
individual,
Chris.
with a maximum of $50,000. The resolution last month called for these programs to be 1 year in duration. We're asking with this one to have an additional 6-month extension depending on the availability of funds under that $50,000. Basically, the application and intended use are all spelled out in the backup documents.
The documents that I provided, I feel real confident in the ability to use the funds appropriately using these documents because we've used them before. I updated them so they're specific to these funds.
Yeah, so some of you might remember we used our prescription drug royalty fees a few years ago to do something fairly similar, and
Thank
with great success.
Thank you. Commissioner McGilvray?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is we have 26 offices throughout Oakland County. How will this money be divided amongst those offices?
That's a good question, and that's one that I've been asked before. I don't come up with a formula like saying per office, because there might be a situation where one office is seeing more families in need than another office. Also, our local youth assistance offices raise some funds to help families as well. So if one office is able to do more direct service than another, I want to make sure we're getting it to the families that need it most. So it comes through the applications of the caseworkers dealing with the families. And Commissioner McGilvery, I know that you and your family have been involved in the Madison Heights Youth Assistance Office, and I can say funds that we've had over time, we've had several applications from the Madison Heights area, which we've been able to serve. But they don't come to me with a predetermination that it should be more from this community or that community. We kind of look at it as the families in need as they come to us, whether it be from Ferndale or Holly, any area of the county.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell?
I just had a quick question just to get a read on, has things improved? Of course, I govern City of Pontiac. I've had a conversation with you before. We've picked up on some things. And I just wanted to know collectively, have the communication between you all improved? Are y'all able to help more families? Because we know that a lot of the information was not getting to you all. So have y'all been improving with that as far as there in the City of Pontiac?
I'm not sure exactly how to answer your question, or maybe I'm not sure I'm hearing it correctly, but let me give you my shot at it, and if I don't hit it, ask me again, okay? Our services, or families reaching out to us for services, quite often depends on the sort of the disposition of school personnel or police personnel, realizing that early intervention is a very important part of keeping kids out of the juvenile justice system. Our program in Pontiac does have a high referral rate.
Okay.
Now, I don't know, I could go back for you if you wanted and see how it compares to 5 years ago. I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but I can also say we have a really active board of volunteers in the Pontiac office. You might know Melvin Lee.
Yes, I know everybody there.
Okay, yeah, he's the chairperson of the board, and he's doing a fantastic
As long as
job.
I know that you're getting, it's not a good thing to get a lot of referrals, but I'm very aware of what's going on in my city.
Yeah.
So at least we're reaching out to get the assistance to improve things.
Absolutely.
So that's all I'm happy about, because I
Yes.
know that connection was not happening, and we were seeing and hearing stuff, and I reached out, and we had a dialogue. I talked to you and a couple people at the Pine. But I'm just happy to hear that, okay, they are utilizing the resources. We're not letting you all just be over here and not utilizing you all, and we need you. That's
Right,
yeah.
and I would say probably at the core of our conversation previously was a relationship with the school district and their willingness to refer, and I think that has improved quite a bit. So I think
That's
now
great.
maybe I got to the nut of that question, right? Thank you.
But overall, I was trying to get a read on just the city in general, because I
Yep.
know that the other schools are utilizing you as well. I have charters there as well. So whomever, I'm just happy that we're utilizing the resources, because Oakland County or other entities have been given these resources, but we're having a hard time connecting them. So my question is now to everybody, are we exhausting every measure? What else? And then to end this, just if you need me to do any more outreach for you, I'll be willing to do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
I appreciate that, Commissioner.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Cabell?
Thank you, Chair. Mary, how did you decide on $800 roughly per family? I know it's not a hard number, but.
Well, that's a good question, too. With money that we've received previously, we've always done a $500 cap on that, and that was with the thinking that we wanted to spread it to as many families as possible. This is a little bit more money, and I have seen the applications that come to us in the last year, especially the caseworkers are always getting right up to that 500 and then coming back later and asking, well, they really need this and this and this. And so I thought, okay, this is a time where we can really make it easier to serve those families. So that's why I thought if we put the $800 cap on it, it would be a little more accessible. And, because sometimes a worker will apply for some money for a young person to go to a specialty camp like SCAMP or something like that. But, so we've spent $500 on that, but then they're coming back and saying, but this family really needs like gas money and some clothes and things like that. There was a sad story where a family had done everything they could to stay up to date on every utility, and they probably could have let those fall behind a little bit. Then they were without food for a holiday. And it's like, so of course we bought them food. So that's how we did 800, increasing from 500.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell?
And I just wanted to tell my colleagues, I have witnessed at least Pontiac Youth Assistance do help the kids in extracurricular activities, pay for that cost. My daughter cheers for equestrian dance, and we have worked with Pontiac Youth Assistance to allow those kids to come and be a part of the program. And they have paid for them to be in it. So thank you very much.
Commissioner Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to say thank you to administration for recognizing the significant impact that pandemic has had on the mental health and well-being of both adults and children. And I'm really excited and happy to have Mary, you lead with our Oakland County Youth Assistance in administering this. This is something that I think is an acute need, and especially as we look at starting our school year. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Commissioner McGilvray?
Just one quick comment. As Mary mentioned, I'm part of Madison Heights Youth Assistance, but it's been terrible, the pandemic, because we haven't been able to have fundraisers. And so we're really short of funds as it is, so this will be a great help, so.
Yep, and the caseworker assigned to your community has my cell phone number and uses it often, I will say, which is good. I mean, I appreciate that, because our caseworkers are determined on getting resources for families.
Anything else? Commissioner Jackson?
Thank you, Chair. Mary, I really am concerned with our youth and the virtual learning environment that a lot of them were participating in last school year. Have you noticed the increase in incorrigibility or the effect of the online world that our children were kind of thrust into more and more last year during
Well,
the pandemic?
You know, it's been an interesting time because our caseworkers are reporting extreme stress in the families because of the pandemic, being at home, the online learning, and there's so many aspects to that. Like you could see a single parent who had to work lots of extra hours, maybe because she was a nurse, or you can see a single parent who lost lots of hours, maybe because they were working in the service industry. So lots of different circumstances in families, but everyone being on devices was very hard. A family that maybe had one computer and 3 kids trying to do the online classes. I know that's not exactly what you're asking about, but it adds to the stress that families were going through. So actually some money that we had previously for this kind of expenditure, we did spend some of it on devices for families so that kids could be online. You probably know that schools have gone through a terrible time where there were kids who were not checking into their online classes, and school districts have not been able to find those kids. And that's nationally, that's not just Oakland County, but they can't find the kids. So often they're enlisting our help in that. We don't do like a detective, private eye kind of service, so we can't always be tracking families down, but we do the best we can to engage them in services. But all that is to say that yes, the stress level, the mental health needs, I'm looking at, we had to sort of freeze our mentoring program that we do with all of our offices because of the pandemic, and I think when we come out of this, our need for mentors is going to skyrocket because parents are just going to need all the help that they can to support the kids as the kids are getting back into the community. So yeah, the stress. One of the things that I feel so bad about is I see a level of shame through parents because they can't do everything that they want to do.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel really bad.
Yeah.
And secondly, while you're there, I just want to thank you in front of everyone for your participation and representation on the Human Trafficking Task Force
Oh,
and
thank
setting up a vetting initiative for us to be able to really help us discern who are the best speakers about online safety and human trafficking in our schools, because we were all over the place and people wanted to volunteer and we didn't know what voices to present in front of our children. And you were a great part of giving us a outline and a program that we're going to help initiate the local schools. So thank you for your help with that.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, roll call, please.
On item number 1, Powell,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
McGilvray,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Cavell,
Yes.
Gingell,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Lubes.
Yes.
You have 9 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you for your
We're
support.
proud of the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to bring Mary with me forever.
Our next item is from the Health Department, fiscal year 2022 Local Health Department Comprehensive Agreement Grant Application. I have a motion by Commissioner Gingell, support from Commissioner Nelson. And we have virtually Leanne Stafford here to speak to this.
Good morning, everyone. So this first request is our large health department grant or comprehensive agreement. We've also heard it or previously known as the CPBC for those that have been around a little bit. So this is our bulk of our funding that comes from the state. This funding is a little over $11 million and really is most of our mandated programs by the state. This is, like I said, a continuation grant, and we are receiving a little less than last year. Last year's funding amount was over $15 million, so you can see there is a difference there, but that's really related to the funding that we received for COVID response, because that is included also in this grant. And we were just notified late last week that they will be continuing some funding for COVID response, and so we'll be bringing an additional request for that money in the probably next month for you to approve that, hopefully. So there was some reduction in programs and funding, and so we will continue to support 62 special revenue positions. We're reclassifying 2, and basically they're just getting an upgrade in the position that they're in now. We did have to reduce 2 positions in a program, but they were not vacant. I mean, they were vacant, so they were already kind of being, we were kind of working out of those programs anyway, so there's no the person that's affected by that, any employees. So again, we'll be bringing back additional money for emergency preparedness, which is really some of that COVID funding. So I could take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Great explanation. We have no questions, so roll call, please.
On item number 2, Hoffman.
Yes.
McGilvray.
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Cavell,
Yes.
Gingell,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Lubes.
Yes.
You have 9 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item, also from the Health Department, is the Nurse Education Practice Quality and Retention Registered Nurses in Primary Care Grant Acceptance. So I have a motion by Commissioner McGilvray, support from Commissioner Hoffman. We're ready, Leanne.
Okay, so this is a continuation grant. This was a 4-year grant that we received, and so basically we're bringing back for the last year for this grant period, asking to accept a little over $75,000. And so what this is our bachelor-trained nurses here in the health division are considered preceptors for Wayne State University College of Nursing. It's nurses that are in that field and looking to graduate soon, and they actually are immersed in our programs. So they work with our community nurses out in the field and really get an understanding of what our community nurses and public health nurses do for public health, for the health division. And so these senior level BSN students actually work along our nurses and really get a good understanding of it. And so this money helps pay for the salary and fringes for those that are considered our preceptors in this program. And I can tell you this program has actually been very successful, where we have hired public health nurses out of this program that were part of this immersion program, and they've actually been hired here at the health division.
Thank you. Commissioner Hoffman?
I have a question. Thank you, Leanne. Is there a shortage in nurses still?
You know what, here at the Health Division, I think it's been, as kind of things have changed, we are looking to fill the remainder of our programs, but I think across the board, when you look at nursing, there's a shortage of nurses. When you look at hospitals, the whole nursing field. So we're doing a little bit better here, but I know hospitals are really struggling to fill positions.
Thank you. My concern and thought is that there's some hospitals now are requiring vaccinations or they lose their jobs. I don't know if there's a better way to approach this, however. If there's already a shortage, it's just going to be made worse. Plus probably all the lawsuits that'll go along with that too. I was just throwing it out there for discussion.
Yeah, I know that there have been some hospitals that have required that their nurses get vaccinated. It's not just COVID. There are other vaccines that are required, at some hospitals. But yeah, I don't know what the fallout for that will be. But I have seen that there has been a lot of discussion and, some strikes that have occurred because of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
On item number 3, McGillivray,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Cavell,
Yes.
Gingell,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Lubes.
Yes,
You have 9 yeas, 0 nays.
motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is a report to the board, our resolution, creation of Unlocking Doors Oakland program in partnership with the Alliance for Housing. So who do I have a motion from? Commissioner Powell, support from Commissioner McGilvery. And Commissioner Jackson, would you like to talk about this?
Yes, Chairwoman. I just want to say this resolution was originally brought forth as to create the Landlord Risk Mitigation Fund, which was a fund that was to assist landlords in case of a tenant creating damage to rental property that they may own during their rental or lease agreement. We have changed this resolution from a fund and created a program. Instead of the Landlord Risk Mitigation Fund, the program created is the Unlocking Doors Oakland County program in partnership with the Alliance for Housing. I have the original resolution plus the amendments that are numerous. Does everyone have a copy of the amendments? Yep. Okay, great. So, sorry about that. So basically, the program now is going to make use of ARP dollars versus originally proposed general fund dollars. ARP dollars, because this program is going to address negative economic impacts caused by the public health emergency, whereas people experiencing homelessness are at an increased risk of COVID-19 infection from living in congregate shelters and are more likely to experience negative health consequences from infection due to unstable housing. So the resolution title is going to be amended to approval of Unlocking Doors Oakland program to provide rental housing access assistance and appropriation of American Rescue Plan local coronavirus recovery funds, adding in the traditional coronavirus language in the beginning through the first 4 whereas clauses. Then we have an amendment to the 5th whereas clause as follows. Whereas people often face a series of obstacles that threaten their success of securing affordable housing, barriers to accessible affordable rental housing may include lack or source of income, a poor credit history, a poor rental history, criminal history, disabilities, and or other challenges. We're going to amend the 6th whereas clause as follows. Whereas in Oakland County, the number of people experiencing homelessness on any given night could exceed as many as 427 individuals. This amounts to a 3.4 homeless per 10,000 people of Oakland County's general population, according to statistics compiled by the National Alliance to End Homelessness. We're going to amend the 12th whereas clause as follows. Whereas Unlocking Doors Oakland program property owners receive assurance that they can be repaid for a limited amount of damages beyond the amount of a renter's security deposit. And amend the last whereas clause as follows. Whereas the launch of the Unlocking Doors Oakland program on a limited one-time funded pilot program basis through a partnership with the Alliance for Housing can establish an initial assessment to the effectiveness of this type of program with the goal to reduce COVID-19 infections, remove barriers to housing, and foster positive relationships between individuals and housing insecure tenants. And we will be amending the now therefore be it resolved clause as follows. Now therefore be it resolved that the Oakland County Board of Commissioners hereby creates the Unlocking Doors program on a limited, one-time funded pilot program basis. We will be amending the be it further resolved clause as follows. Be it further resolved that the policies and procedures of the Unlocking Doors Oakland program are outlined in attachment A to this resolution. We're going to be amending the be it further resolved clause as follows. Be it further resolved that the Oakland County Board of Commissioners authorizes the Department of Health and Human Services to enter into a contract for services with the Alliance for Housing for the purposes of the Alliance for Housing independently administering the Unlocking Doors Oakland program to assist persons negatively impacted by COVID-19 and at an increased risk of COVID-19 infection, subject to review and approval by corporate counseling and purchasing. We'll be amending the third be it further resolved clause as follows. Be it further resolved, the Oakland County Board of Commissioners authorizes the expenditure of up to $315,000 of the American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds to provide rental housing accessibility assistance for individuals impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic through the establishment of the Unlocking Doors Oakland program. We'll be amending, almost finished guys, we'll be amending the fourth further resolved clause as follows. Be it further resolved that the Department of Health and Human Services Neighborhood and Housing Development Division will serve as contract administrator for the program and is authorized to enter into a contract for services with the Alliance for Housing to act as program administrator, subject to review of the purchasing division and corporate counsel. The duration of the contract shall be 1 year with the option to extend for a maximum of 3 years at the discretion of the contract administrator and concurrence of the Public Health and Safety Committee based upon program success metrics. And we'll be adding the following to be it further resolved clause to the 5th through the 6th be it further resolved clause. Be it further resolved that the program shall be administered in conformance with federal, state, and local legal requirements, Oakland County policies and procedures, and Department of Treasury guidelines for the eligible expenditure of the American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds. Be it further resolved that approval of appropriations of the American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for programs and services by Oakland County shall not obligate a commitment of the general fund unless authorized by the Board of Commissioners. And we'll be amending the budget as follows. So instead of $105,000 as from the general fund, we'll be allocating approval for the Unlocking Doors Oakland Fund from the ARP Federal Operating Grants total revenue and expenditures. Thank you. Any questions, any other comments from my supporting cast here of my fearless leader?
Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you, and thank you, Janet, for your work on this. I think it's for all the committee members, and I think we got Shane here, we can also talk about it, but to also kind of tee it up from a public policy point of view. A lot of the housing advocates, I mean, this conversation probably started, what, 2 years ago? 2.5 years ago? The concept of risk mitigation fund as a tool to incentivize and really mitigate the concern where there is stigma that low-income people might be more likely to damage property, which evidence shows that's not actually the case, but where that the belief or that thought exists, that creating a pool of money to say, hey, should such an event occur, that there's a mechanism to apply and to repair damage if that should happen. The adjustment in this conversation was looking at a 1 year, but because eligible for ARP dollars, looking at a 36-month continuum, which would also give our housing department an ability to gather data. Is this a tool that could be, what is the experience? Is it actually resulting in its ultimate goal to incentivize and encourage access for affordable housing for more people? And so, this is a best practice, a tool that is available around the country, and I think it's I'm very excited that we'll be able to bring such a program here to benefit the residents of Oakland County.
I love the title change, Unlocking Doors is such a positive outlook versus landlord mitigation risk fund. It's marvelous. Commissioner Powell.
I was gonna say, this is actually really good to hear that we're moving in this direction. I met with my landlords about 2 months ago, and that was one of their concerns with damages exceeding the security deposit. And then, that sometimes delay their turnaround time and being able to move another tenant because they have to come up with those funds. And of course, I did stress that we will require paperwork and proof. So that was good to see that it is a program where they're going to have to give sufficient information so that we know that we're not getting, I don't even know the correct word to use, but anyway, everybody get my point. So yes, I think this is going to be good. I think they're going to be happy to hear of such a program. And one thing I want to know, this is only for COVID related though, right? It's not just in generality, or, because, the funds only can be used per COVID. Oh.
Short answer is,
I just want to make that clear in my explanation when I talk to the landlords.
short answer is yes, Commissioner.
Okay.
In order to use the rescue plan dollars, we have to have I'd be calling it a breadcrumb trail back to, COVID impact. I think we looked at both the economic impacts and then people who are experiencing housing insecurity, maybe due to like a congregate living situation where their health is compromised.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Hoffman?
All right, so let me understand that. Housing Alliance will run the program, right? They'll oversee the program. A person will qualify and receive a voucher for housing? Is that the way it works?
No, it's,
This is for
This is-
reimbursement or,
for landlords.
This is for the
Payment of
landlord. So
damages.
if they're in, are you talking about Section 8 housing?
No, I'm talking about, it says something in here about they would receive a voucher, I think, for housing.
Yeah. So I think I might be able to, actually, Shane, why don't you?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Quick sound check. Everything good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the Housing Choice Voucher Program is a system set up separately from this program. And that is, eligibility for that is monitored by Community Housing Network and the Alliance for Housing. And so to be eligible for a landlord to receive this funding, should damages occur, that kind of thing, it would have to be in response to an individual who had received a housing choice voucher. And so that's not all tenants, but only those who are receiving that housing choice voucher, which is a separate system from this particular program.
Okay, so this is for people who receive a voucher, correct?
Yep.
And then the
So
landlord, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, so an individual who is experiencing homelessness qualifies for a housing choice voucher, and then the service agencies work with that individual to find a landlord who is willing to rent to them utilizing the housing choice voucher funds. And very often during those conversations, a landlord might say, I'm willing to, but I'm concerned, et cetera. Then we can say, should some damages occur, et cetera, there's this funding available to you within these specifications, should something like that happen. And so that is, in the basic sense, how the model is going to go. So there's none of this money is going to directly to a renter or somebody receiving the housing choice voucher. It would go directly to the landlord to make them whole should damages occur from somebody who was renting there and was receiving a housing choice voucher.
Okay, thank you. What, is there a limit to how much the landlord can receive? I know it's based on damage. Let's say there's $5,000 worth of damage and
So the housing choice voucher program, somebody who is renting still has to submit their security deposit, and there's other avenues to assist those people with that. But between the security deposit and average amount of damages that we've kind of seen like that, we've listed the maximum reimbursement. We've capped it at $3,000 in this particular program. Now, they can't just say, $3,000, please. They have to submit invoices and other kind of documentation so that we know that the what they're asking for is accurate.
all right, so a combination of the security deposit and the gap that would be funded by this will not exceed $3,000.
$3,000 plus whatever the security deposit might
plus
be.
the security deposit, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Genzel?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So we, as a county, have provided rent assistance and other things through different programs and mechanisms to help people stay in their homes, et cetera. This is more about the landlords. So if I accepted somebody under the voucher program that does something, now I have a way to get money to fix it, which I think is good. I'm still, in my mind, sorting out and wanting to understand, how do we ensure that we don't turn landlords into socialized housing managers? Because that's a problem in my mind when you have landlords who are capitalists that are trying to own buildings and make money, and now you're telling them when they can let somebody in, when they can't. This seems to be positive. I may be a no vote today just so that it's on the regular agenda and it gives us more time to research it. So just want to let everybody know.
Well, my understanding is the voucher may pay a certain amount of rent, and the landlord might be charging another amount of rent. So in that particular scenario, it's not a good match for the tenant and the landlord. Commissioner Woodward?
So I think, I mean, it's important to realize that the housing choice voucher program is voluntary, that landlords don't have to participate. If they do, it's a way to help subsidize rent for low-income individuals. The purpose of a program like this is to encourage more landlords to willingly participate. Now, the whole point of the housing voucher program is so that the subsidized amount plus whatever additional amount up to a certain percentage of their income can go towards rent, that landlords are more comfortable renting to, or feel more comfortable that their property is not going to receive disproportional damage. Often around the country where these programs have been put in place, there is actually a very low draw on this because the actual experience is just because you're poor doesn't mean you're more likely to destroy property. And it helps lift away the stigma, give a little bit of security to those to voluntarily opt into a program to make things work. So hopefully no one ever draws on it.
And also I wanted to say, to Genja, when I met with my landlords, they were not even fully wrapped around the whole voucher program. So even though the stigmas are out there, the guy from, I can't remember the group, Steve, he basically broke down a lot of the rights that a lot of landlords don't even know that they have. So we're trying to also to increase that educational curve with them as well. But one thing that my landlord stressed about was the additional fund, just helping them get through the repair process so that they can kind of turn things around. But I do understand where you're at, because we're not trying to turn it into that. And I do want everybody to know that, yes, it is optional for landlords to take these tenants. However, it's a mess. We have a huge issue with regular individuals like myself is trying to find a home now, right?
There's no demand or supply.
They don't have nowhere to go. Now a lot of the Section 8 tenants are now having to get their vouchers almost back because they're not able to. And we know all of the individuals, they just need a little assistance to pay their rent. That don't mean that their slums is going to tear up the house. And that's that stigma we're trying to turn around, you know what I mean? So, no, we're on the same page. I agree with you, I understand, but I just want to express my feelings and what I talk to my landlords about with the concerns with that, yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner Genzel?
No, I was just going to say, I think it's helpful. I'm not necessarily on the contrary side about this program. There's a little bit more I need to research, and I want to vote no so that it goes on the regular agenda, which means we'll discuss it at the board meeting, and there may not be any discussion. But the other part of it is, and I don't want to get into a debate here, but let's say I'm a landlord, and let's say I choose to accept an individual with this voucher, and now I've got a little safety net, which is, hey, I can get $3,000 if something happens and it's destroyed. But what we also saw during COVID was there's a movement to say, hey, now you've got renters, we don't want anybody being kicked out or evicted because of COVID and getting it out there and spreading COVID. So landlords essentially have buildings that they don't really have control over. And my desire is to make sure we're not doing anything here in any form or fashion that on its face is well-intended, but causes a back-end problem for the people that took the risk, put their money out, bought the building, got in a rental management business, and now they can't manage their own business.
Yep.
That to me is 100% opposite of what I'm concerned. I'm not saying that's what this does. I totally get what this says. I just want to make sure I'm connecting all the dots down the path.
Totally understand. Thank you.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yeah, and I hear Commissioner Gidgel's point. I mean, I think it's also important to know that the housing voucher, even with the moratorium in place, the one people who kept getting paid were the people who were receiving the housing voucher, because it was a subsidy that HUD wires the money directly to the landlord. So, I mean, that type of scenario, they were the ones actually continuing to receive income when a lot of other landlords that didn't have a housing voucher did not receive the monthly payment.
Yeah, I was going to say, because my sister's a tenant and she has several properties, and that's what she did in Detroit, and she didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
She did fine compared to her.
Yeah,
Yeah, she owns 550 properties.
Yep.
And
So, well, I think there's.
Well, you can look at it both ways.
Yeah, right.
Somebody can move the amendment.
So I will move the amendment or see if there's support.
Yep, we have an amendment here with motion by Commissioner Jackson, support from Commissioner Woodward. Any other comments on the amendment? Commissioner Cavell?
Not to belabor the point, or, I hear what you're saying, but just like a funny anecdote is Ronald Reagan invented the housing choice voucher program. So I don't know if that helps about capitalism.
It doesn't.
All right. Maybe we have more in common than we think. All right, cool. All right. Anyways.
Roll call, please.
On
Thanks for the
the
laugh,
amendment for
Yes.
number 4 that we have before us.
Correct.
Jackson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Cavell,
Yes.
Gingell,
No.
Woodward,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
McGilvray,
Yes.
Lutz.
Yes.
You have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
All right,
Sorry.
motion carries. Thank you. Yes.
If
Okay.
I may,
Commissioner Woodward?
Madam Chair, and Shane,
disagree.
can you, do you have the attachment A, the policy in front of you? I think,
Yes.
yeah, so when you mentioned basically it would be units, landlords that rent units to individuals receiving the housing choice voucher. So the very first bullet point, and I think to me it's clear what the intent was, but I think it's written a little, it basically says all homeless persons who receive. So you might not be necessarily homeless if you receive a housing voucher. So I wonder if we should change that. And I'm fine, we can work on an amendment later, or, I mean, I was just playing around with some language, like maybe something that, like rental because like the homeless person's not eligible for the up to $3,000. It's, I mean, landlord, so some language like rental units where tenants receive a housing voucher, a housing choice voucher. I think we should probably mention like a veteran housing voucher, or enrolled in homeless preference or permanent supportive housing through the Alliance for Housing Special Programs will be eligible for the program. It's really it's the unit that's eligible for the use of these dollars, not an individual, correct?
Yeah, good point. It's all landlords who rent to an individual receiving X, Y, or Z are eligible. That's a good point.
Right. So why don't, I mean, if, maybe we can just work towards an amendment to the floor to tweak that. I mean, again, it doesn't really change anything, but just to make it clear that it's about the tenant. So between now and the floor, and we'll work with Commissioner Ginchel and get his support. So
I think that's a simple edit to make. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. So thank you for the report and the amendment, bringing it forward. Our next item is from the Sheriff's Office, fiscal year 2021 body worn camera policy and implementation program to support law enforcement agencies' grant application. So this item and the next item is an informational piece for us. Who would like to make a motion?
This is just a receive and file, right?
Correct.
It's a receive.
I'll move to receive and file.
Commissioner Ginto, support from Commissioner Powell. And under Sheriff and Lieutenant Schneider are here.
And Gabe.
Gaia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I get into the application, I just want to clarify something. At the last Democratic caucus, Commissioner Cavell said that we had, he made a comment. I stepped out of the room and I didn't hear it, but Gaia was watching it remotely. He made a comment that he found it interesting the Sheriff's Office could hit the committee deadline for the snowmobile grant, but conveniently forgot the BWC application, which is absolutely inaccurate. We have passed around a timeline for you to see. We have worked with Chairman Woodward. We have worked with the county administration on this grant, and the grant has been submitted in a timely fashion. There's a huge difference between a $70,000 snowmobile grant that was 5 pages long, took an hour to fill out, versus a 60-page multi-million-dollar grant. And quite frankly, I think it was insulting to Gaia and to her staff for that comment to be made, and I just wanted to let you know that, and the document speaks for itself.
Thank you for the clarification.
So we're here today to tell you that the grant has been applied for. We, again, have worked with the chair, and we've worked with the county administration, specifically Chris Ward, on this, and we're pleased to tell you that the grant application is in. We already have we have many things in place so that if we're successful in obtaining this grant, that we'll be able to implement this program.
Thank you. And Commissioner Woodward, it looks like you have something to say.
Yeah, no, I have something to say, and I appreciate all the conversation that's been happening. So this board, and I've heard it from members on both sides of the aisle. We changed our board policies specifically because people wanted to see these grants earlier. I wasn't going to necessarily bring it up, but I'll bring it up now. Here was the grant opportunity that released at the end of May, and we submitted the grant. Literally yesterday, I guess. It was the deadline of yesterday. So I realize that, in terms of its length and all those types of things, I don't know if it's overly complicated because we know generally what this program is going to cost and how we're going to write it out. Certainly there's some technical language that needs to be in there. I do believe that if it was a priority and an urgency, that it should have been before the very last deadline. I know that there was interest to strengthen the language in that grant application, but because of the timeliness and the ability to access it in the final hours, that we weren't able to make those changes. So, it is an inaccurate claim, in my opinion, that we, didn't have time to get to this sooner if it was a higher priority.
I didn't make that claim, sir. I was just addressing what he said, that we conveniently forgot. That is not true. And if you look at the document that we sent you, that we gave you, sir, you'll see all the other grants that we are in the process of applying for, too. We don't have a full-time grant writer. Gay has a staff member, Catherine West, who you all know, who's been in front of this committee, who does multiple things and works extremely hard at what she does. So look, I say let's just move on. We've worked with you. We've worked with the administration. I just wanted to give you the facts.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
And my understanding was the grant funding may have interfered, and you've listed it down here with the with the funding of the project for grant funding and coming out.
Right, there's a
of
match
general fund.
involved, but as I testified before, and Mr. Chairman knows, you can't supplant general fund dollars with grant dollars.
Right, thank you. Yep. Commissioner Cavell?
Yeah, so you don't have a dedicated grant writer, understood. How much is the Marine Slow No Wake Zone Enforcement Grant?
It was around $70,000. You stepped out of the room, it's a
No, that one,
four-page.
that one,
No,
sorry, that
oh,
was, that one was,
$450.
The
that
Marine-
was
oh,
100,
okay.
no, the No Wake grant was a brand-new one that we got this year, and that was up to $100,000.
Okay.
That was
So-
a
and that
brand-new
was-
grant.
Is 70 grand?
Yes, sir.
And the high-intensity drug trafficking, how much is that?
We
Close
have
to
I'll have-
500,000.
Yeah, I'll have to get all of those for you if you want all
Close
of the
to
details.
500,000.
What's the biggest one of these grants? How much would you say it is?
I'd have to go back to the mental health and wellness one to find out how much that is, but they're all, I mean, all the DOJ ones are fairly substantial. And just to suggest there was any intent to hold back is completely untrue. I mean, if you look at all of these, and we did bring, if you look at communication B on the agenda, there was a resolution to approve the pre-application. So as Commissioner Woodward stated, there was a new DOJ process this year that said you have to do a pre-application in one system and then do the actual application in another system. So with the way the board rules were, we had to bring that pre-application to the board. And then you saw a one-page document that had no narrative, had no details in it. And so we were trying to get that changed because obviously we know this is a hot topic. This is a board priority. This is a board initiative. And so if we would have followed that procedure and submitted you a one-page, that's what you would have gotten, and then the body-worn camera grant application would have been a communication. So with all of that being said, in the middle of that, we're trying to prioritize by deadline. So in previous years, we haven't been eligible for a lot of DOJ grants. They've been, hey, create a nationwide program for everybody to implement. This year, obviously, there's been some changes. We are very, very fortunate to be able to apply for a number of them. They're all due right around the same time. So we have one person who is a supervisor over her own team. She has grant management experience, but she's also in charge of all the jail, health, and food service contracts, which, as you can imagine, at this time are high priority. So with all that being said, we had a number of things, and we were working on everything simultaneously, trying to get them to you all by the deadlines and get them submitted at that time. So there was never an intent to hold anything back, and so we do take exception to that
But
comment, so.
my question is, did,
Commissioner Ginzel?
I'm sorry, you can finish if you want to
thank
finish.
you. Chair Ludes, is that okay?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Is it okay if I finish?
You have a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. The biggest one of these grants, though, is not $1.5 million with a match to make a $3 million program, right? Which
I
the
don't
body-
understand your question.
I'm trying to lead you to the body-worn cameras.
Yes, sir.
Is a really big grant.
It's a big grant.
really big
The
program.
Heidi grant's a big grant.
Which is bigger than these.
The mental
And
health
so then
grant is a big grant.
Right, the like Gantt chart logic model of gaming out the program management of making the grant. That seems like that should have been priority and not last minute, wherein.
Well, it wasn't last minute. We brought the grant, I made the chairman and the board aware of the grant in the first place. And we said, we asked the board, are you going to apply for this, or are we going to apply for it, or are we going to do it jointly? So that discussion went on for a couple weeks before that even happened. We got this done in about a month, a little more than a month, which I think is pretty good. But again, I don't want to sit here and fight with you. I just want to point out, we have busted our butts to do as much as we can to get this county as much money as we can, and to also get this program in place in the future.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginzel?
Yeah, I was just gonna, I guess, ask, the matter before us today is to receive and file the fact that we're being notified around this grant application, right?
Correct.
So I guess we can debate the grant application timelines, et cetera, but and I appreciate Commissioner Cavell, that there's other, as you think about the operational piece, there's other things like the historical grants for mental health. And to substitute priority one or the other, you missed the mental health grant, now you got all kinds of issues relative to the connectivity of the mental health community, the jail, people going into the jail with mental health issues where this grant helps maybe address them a different way. And you've got people lining up here and saying, hey, you did that over body cams, which is a new program that no one even knows if it's good or bad. I mean, just to play the devil's advocate. So I guess my particular position is the matter before us is to say this is receiving and filing the fact that the sheriff's office is applying or has applied for this grant application. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I mean, I think so, per our board rules, I authorized the grant to go forward because of the deadline was yesterday. But definitely, and again, this is feedback from commissioners that would, people want to see these grant applications, want to understand it. If we get it, we're committing additional dollars, the 50-50 match, to be able to make it happen. And so I want to make certain that it was before everyone in this committee and then any member of the board that wants to see the grant application.
Fair enough.
Commissioner McGilvery?
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't say anything, but I've complained to Woodward many times in the past about last-minute things coming into our board. And I think that this is where part of this is. And I'm not blaming you, Mr. McCabe, or Gaya, or anybody else. It's not just you, it's all departments, and it seems like we've been getting besieged last minute with grant applications, getting too close to the deadline, the chairman has to sign off on them, and then we hear about it. I think that's our concern, and that's the only thing that was brought up. So, I mean, that's all it was about. I don't think we have to get negative at our meetings to discuss this. That's all it's about, so.
I understand, sir, and I would just say the process has changed over the last several years. When we did do grant applications, everybody on the board saw those grant applications as communications. Now, whether anybody read them or not, I don't know. And the process is what it is, and we're doing our best to continue to meet that process, but it is more time-consuming than it was in the past.
And we appreciate that too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else before we receive and file this item? Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that item is received and filed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee.
Okay, one more. Is this one more? The appropriate funding for implementing body-worn cameras initiative within the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. So this is an informational item.
Well, actually,
Looks
we
like
have an amendment
to receive
too.
and file.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
I have
and
a
actu-
motion by Commissioner Woodward, support from Commissioner Jackson.
So, I mean, it was informational, but we do have an amendment. So this was the original, we started having the conversation at our last meeting. This is an amendment to that, shaping the focus instead of kind of being appropriate the funding for this, the shift it to implementation of a law enforcement body-worn camera program. And so, I mean, I guess, can we move the amendment? I'll move the amendment.
Okay,
Great.
so I have a motion by Commissioner Woodward, support from Commissioner Jackson for the
Yeah,
amendment.
and now I'll explain. I mean, like, substantively, what it, does instead of the actual appropriation, it speaks to spelling out, and Commissioner Ward's here and can maybe help me explain this, that assigns the matching dollars for the grant that's going forward. Again, assign, not appropriate. We expect to hear back from the grant, whether we got it in the next couple months. If we do, we can proceed with that. If we don't, then we will, come up with another strategy on how to fund this. And then probably the guts, the be it further resolved clause at the very last one speaks to the county executive working with the sheriff's office and the board of commissioners to kind of establish the process of rolling this out. with a report coming back to this board that deals with the initial costs associated, the ongoing annual costs, the impact on the law enforcement service contracts, implications for options related to general county policies, and background on departmental implementation and associated internal operation policies for the use for such a program. So it, puts the ball in motion. It lifts up the things that were talked about. Having gone through the RFP, the RFP selection committee, selecting Motorola Solutions as the vendor, and moves us forward in beginning the process for implementing such a program.
Deputy Ward, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, he made me a commissioner earlier, so.
Sorry.
Yeah. I just simply want to say thank you to the chair and the sheriff's office for some very positive dialogue that I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I think this is a good work product that overall I believe people are comfortable with, and starts a conversation, as the chairman mentioned, away from whether or not we're going to do this to an implementation phase, and for all of you as elected officials to be provided a fully, comprehensive review and assessment of all of the implications of moving forward. And of course, I think we all can agree that body cameras are a very positive thing, both to protect the public and to protect our law enforcement officers. But there is a major question here of who's going to pay for it. And so bringing in the appropriate folks from the administration to convene this group and assess those options. We're proud of having delivered a structurally balanced budget and want to keep us along those lines. At the same time, we want to help move this forward. I do want to mention as well that part of this overall conversation is a resolution that's not in this committee. It's in the Economic Development Committee, the feasibility study for the training facility, the Emergency Operations Center. I think we have a strategic storage facility that is shared between the sheriff and our Homeland Security folks and our dispatch center. To us, these two things belong in the same conversation. A body camera is a very powerful tool in itself, but if you're not providing the training, you're simply documenting things that you not necessarily wouldn't be proud of. In some instances. But I simply would just, on behalf of the administration, encourage you to move forward with this amendment in the resolution concurrently with the resolution on the feasibility study.
Thank you. Commissioner Gingell?
I just have a question, and maybe it's outside this committee, but when I looked at the Economic Development Committee agenda last time, I did not see the feasibility study on there. So is that going to be addressed with that committee this week? Does anybody know?
I've actually reached out to the chair this morning and expect it to be resolved.
Okay.
At least before the next board meeting.
Yeah, that's helpful. I appreciate that. Second thing I would say is, so the total annual cost to do this is $3.1 million, and that's what was originally in here. Now we're saying, hey, we might be able to get a grant for half of it, so we'll take the annual cost down to $1.5 million, which I totally get. Like, happy to take the free money, right? Maybe we should put something in here, though, to think about, to say, if in a future year this grant of $1.5 million doesn't come through, and we still want to have body cams, because I'm assuming once they're implemented, they're not going away, the County of Oakland's going to have to flip the $3.1 million or come up with some other funding source. So, maybe we can think about that between now and the board meeting. And the other thing I would say is, on my mind is the collective discussion on funding the training center, things like this. Perhaps we should talk more seriously with the sheriff and the county executive about a public safety millage. Wrap all this stuff together, let the people vote if they want to fund all these things, if we're going to argue about funding them out of general fund money.
Can I speak to Commissioner Gingell's comments? I believe the grant is focused on the upfront one-time costs, which we'll come back again during the life of the cameras running out, but I'm looking at you. Okay, good. I'm getting a nod over there. That's what I was hoping for. And so, you know, as I mentioned, who pays for this, whether it is built into the, you know, the budget for those common to all costs that are county responsibility? Do we pass it on to the local contracts? I think that's a decision that all of you should be presented with before making the final decision on moving forward. And I think a powerful argument for moving forward with the feasibility study is this example of what seems to be an optimistic chance of perhaps getting this $1.5 million. We should be able to go after federal funding to support these facility needs as well. I know of a few grant programs that fit this specific need that do provide startup, you know, initial funding for capital with emergency operations, and I'm sure and we've talked to members of Congress about the training facility and getting an earmark. So to the extent that we fulfill this early study phase and understand fully the costs and you know, what it will take to move forward with that, and perhaps, you know, a public safety millage led by Commissioner Gingell might be an option as well.
Thank you. Yes.
Just real quick, so it's clear, you know, everybody keeps saying it's a training facility. It's dispatch, which services 20 fire departments, 10 other police departments, the Emergency Operations Center, which is under the county executive, and the training facility. And that dispatch center services hundreds of thousands beyond the contracts within Oakland County. So if you haven't been over to that EOC dispatch center, while inside it looks really nice, that building was built in the 1950s and it's cinder block, and I pray to God a tornado doesn't come through there someday. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments regarding our last item that's received and filed at this time? Oh, the amendment, yes, all right, thank you. Any other questions?
One
yes.
quick question. This is $3.1 million. And this is for body-worn cameras for sheriff deputies only. It does not include any local police departments throughout the county?
The conversation right now has been with the agency that Oakland County oversees, so it's not, we're not providing the body cams to Royal Oak or Madison Heights. Actually, many of them actually have already got their own body cams.
Well, some do, certainly. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Cavell?
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification, the $3.1 million isn't for each year, right? It's $650 per year, but, right. 650,000, so just, okay.
Yep, good point. Thank you.
All right, so we need a roll call on the amendment.
On the amendment for number 6, Cavell,
Yes.
Gingell,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
McGilvray.
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Absent.
oh,
She left.
Lubes.
Yes.
You have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, that carries. Commissioner Woodward?
So back on the original resolution, what I wanted to, I'd asked the vendor that's been selected, Motorola Solutions, to be here because I know that people had some questions about this technology. And so Mr. Matt Brady is here. Can I get you to come up? I mean, I think it's important, I mean, as we're having this conversation, when we provided a lot of information last time of the cost and with the bid, that the vendor has also agreed to reduce some of their costs to offset the additional staff request of the sheriff office, I mean, deemed necessary to support FOIA. But I think it's important for people to understand what this looks like. So there's the equipment, and then there's the storage. And while the RFP looked at our dash cam and basically our entire video surveillance as part of the, supporting our law enforcement, our patrols, and other things. This allowed actually an opportunity to, I think for everyone to hear specifically what this technology does. And so, Mr. Brady,
Thank
the
you.
floor is yours.
Yeah, hi, I'm Matt Brady. I'm the Vice President of Video Sales for Motorola Solutions in Chicago. I live in Lamont, which is a suburb of Chicago, and I'm the police commissioner of my hometown. I have been for the last 7 years. My great-grandfather was a Chicago cop, my brother was a Chicago cop. I come from a big family. Most of my cousins are in law enforcement, so I just kind of flocked to the space. We're big in license plate recognition as well. You mentioned human trafficking. We've broken up a lot of human trafficking rings in the country with our analytics. We help put a lot of bad people in jail. I think when we all stood up and said the Pledge of Allegiance, that last line, I hadn't heard the pledge in a long time, is liberty and justice for all, right? Body-worn cameras protect our police officers, our sheriffs, our state police. Michigan State Police uses our technology. But it also protects the citizens, right? They need that transparency. If they're doing something right and they're being mistreated, the video will exonerate them. If the police officer did everything right, that video will exonerate them. So the video is the narrative to help make the community a little bit safer. So we did come in with the lowest price. My company is, we've been around in public safety for over 90 years. We've really reduced the price on this. So this is a 5-year solution hosted. Training is included. We did discount it significantly so that you could have extra people doing FOIAs and the storage and everything. So we love this county. We love the state of Michigan. You're a big customer of ours across the state. It is the best technology on the market. We have something called Record After the Fact, and that's really the only thing I want to talk about, and then I'll answer any questions. So Record After the Fact, you're a sheriff or police officer and you get into a situation, you can't always stop the person you're interacting with. Say you get into a fight and say, can you hold on a minute so I could hit my button and record this? It's always on. Our cameras are always on. The in-car video is always on. The body-worn cameras are always on. So what does that mean? We're going to get the video. There's no, I didn't hit the button, right? We're going to get the video. Now, the sheriff or one of his administrators, they have to have user ID, password to get that video, and they're the only ones that can get it, or they can allocate people on their team to get it. But our competitors don't do that. So if you decide not to hit record, then you don't get that evidence to exonerate a police officer or to exonerate a citizen. So you're really getting the best technology on the market today. So I'll leave it at that, and are there any questions I can answer for you?
Commissioner Wood.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the advantages of going from kind of a place-based storage to a cloud-based system, and what the technology, because of the cloud storage, actually allows for?
Yeah, Dave, we've done it over time. We've done the studies. It's just much more cost-effective to store it. It's like Moore's Law in technology. Like the storage price is going down year after year. You've got Apple, Google, Microsoft, and CGIS certified facilities. They just have economies of scale. They put in one central location, and the prices keep coming down. When you have a premise-based solution, which about half of our agencies in the United States have, you've got to buy petabytes or terabytes of storage. You have to have people to operate them, IT staff. So it's just more cost-effective to move to the cloud. But we have no issue putting it on a prem if someone wants to put it on a prem.
So I just wanted, and I asked Mr. Brady to come here. If there's any questions around the technology. Some of you, around this table have asked, and so here's the expert. Definitely make sure that you have his information. Obviously, Lieutenant Schneider, who's done an incredible job helping usher this through the process, and of course, Under Sheriff McCabe. As we kind of rounding over the next couple of months, we'll know about the grant, but in that process, also putting in place the implementation so that, as I think Under Sheriff McCabe corrects me, we're the third largest. Are we the third largest agency
In the state of Michigan.
in the state of Michigan?
Yes,
and so.
Then MSP,
Than us, and so.
By the way, just an aside, Detroit and Michigan State Police are also our customers for body-worn cameras.
And I think, I'm looking very forward for us being the next, big agency, and to be able to incorporate this and move forward. So if there's any further question, I'll make sure that everyone has Mr. Brady's contact information. But it's
Commissioner
time has
Powell.
come.
So just so I understand process, I know we're filing this, right? Okay.
Well, we're going to vote to advance the amendment, the resolution.
If we're advancing the resolution, will this come before finance tomorrow, correct? Or not so soon? Because is it funding involved with this right now? Yes?
So this isn't the appropriation.
Well, this is all I was
yeah.
asking. I would like him to be present, if possible, for questions with finance. Once this come before us, if they have any questions in regards to Motorola, or we can just replay this little skit of a conversation. Because I think that was something that we did need clarity of, because you made reference of it on that last call. So,
We can arrange, I mean, maybe virtually.
Virtually. Oh, yeah, that's two, I'm sorry. Not physically, I'm sorry. I just want you to be present to answer the questions of the
No problem.
finance.
Yep.
That's all. Thank you. I'm
We'll
sorry.
we'll
I be
talk to
forgetting
figure out
about
what the
virtual.
time
Sorry.
the necessary for finance to be part of the conversation.
Commissioner Gentle.
Yes, thank you. So thanks for coming in. Appreciate the info. I don't really have any questions here. I just want to kind of reiterate if there's anything any of us can do, including myself, to help ensure that the assessment for the facility is on the Economic Development Committee meeting that's coming up. That would be helpful. Otherwise, it may be disappointing.
Got it.
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else? So all in.
Roll call on the resolution.
I was gonna do a voice vote, but we'll do a roll call. Wait. All right, roll call, please. We did a roll call on the amendment, and now we need a roll call on the resolution.
Kinjo,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
McGilvray,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Cabell,
Yes.
Lubes.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before this board? Seeing none, we are adjourned at 12:41. Thank you, everybody.